Alright, welcome everyone to Riders Diaries. Now, it's been a little while. I haven't done a video for quite a time. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is because it's been dreadfully cold and wet and windy up here in Cumbria, and I know it's a dreadful cop-out, but as I'm a fair weather biker now, that makes a big difference. And the other one is because the bike's been in the garage for a bit. Hands up all those who can see something different. No, it's not a great deal, is there? Except maybe this, at the front end. So what we've got here is 4-pot calipers on Firestorm fork lowers. And I wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. One, to kind of like, just do stuff on the bike to make a stronger affinity between me and the motorcycle. And the other was because one of the weak points on the VFR is the 2-pot sliding caliper setup on the front. It's a premium motorcycle. It commanded a £9,000 price tag back in 1997, and I never really understood why they bailed out on this 2-pot sliding caliper design when they had these brakes available from the Fireblade, and also on here from the Firestorm. So what we've done is we've done a fork and brake strip down. We had the front forks out. We took out the lower portion of the forks from the VFR. The Firestorm lower fork bolts straight into all the standard gubbins in the VFR. So what we've got is, from the top, we've got standard fork stanchion, 41mm, standard fork internals, so I keep the preload but there's no compression, and then the fork lower, the cast alloy part, that's been replaced. That gives me the bracketry to hold the 4-pot calipers. So now we've got a VFR 750 with Firestorm lower front end with 4-pot brakes, and I think that's a much nicer setup. There's other ways you can do it. You can put on Tokiko 6 pots from Suzuki GSXRs. You can use the whole RC51 from the Firestorm SP1 and SP2 on the front end, but that uses a slightly thicker fork, which means you've got to start changing over the top yoke, bottom yokes. You've got to start changing over the clip-ons, and this was a much easier, simpler setup. So all I've actually paid out for is a Firestorm mudguard, a Firestorm front axle, because the fork lower is a little bit wider here, so it's got 2 pinch bolts, whereas the VFR just used the 1 pinch bolt. So we need an axle that's 10mm longer, or wider rather, to accommodate that. So mudguard, axle, fork lowers, both sides obviously, 4-pot calipers, and up here we've got a 14mm master cylinder. This came off a Pan-European ST1100. I believe the VFR 800 VTEC models use a 14mm master cylinder, but it's all much of a muchness. It's the remote reservoir rather than the plastic cup, and that kind of helps keep its uniform look. It all looks OEM, which I'm really pleased about. All we need to do now is ride it and make sure it works. So with that, we'll give it a go. Now, I've already been out for a quick spin on this, and it was a very quick spin. It was literally around the block. This was purely to make sure that everything worked, nothing was clunking, nothing was binding, there wasn't any brake pulse coming through the lever, it wasn't warping the discs. The calipers bolt over the standard VFR discs, but you may have to use a washer or two to space the caliper so it's dead central onto the disc. I didn't want one pair of pistons pushing too much onto the disc instead of the other side, and then distorting the disc on those bobbins which you see on the alloy plate, on the yellow alloy plate. So I'm satisfied it's all lined up. Oop. There's no stiction going through the forks, it's nice and smooth going up and down. I've moved back to 5-weight fork oil from 10-weight. I found a 10-weight to be particularly crashy over the small bumps. I've got lots of small bumps and ruts where I live. It rolls nicely, it brakes. I'd like a bit more pressure on the lever, but we'll work on that as we get going. And so yeah, let's take it out for a spin, see how we get on. And I kid you not, it's 18 degrees today. It's the first week of August, and I would say this is the first nice day of summer. Welcome to Cumbria. Now I do still have an existing electrical problem. I've got my neutral light that flickers on and off even when I'm obviously in gear, and that's been traced down to a faulty solenoid or clutch solenoid rectifier, something like this I've read about online, and that's yet to be replaced. So what do we notice about this setup? Well, first of all, these little bumps here, the steering, suspension, it's a lot more plusher. It rides those an awful lot better, and I can only presume that's because I've gone back to 5-weight oil instead of using 10-weight oil. The Firestorm lower, fork lower, is about 5mm longer than the VFR setup, but as you can drop the forks through the clip-ons, you can make that 5mm up no problem. Now it does seem to me that this new setup is at the expense of a touch of vagueness. Now we use, like I say, we can drop the forks here about 10mm through the headstock. What this does is it lowers the front of the bike, it steepens the steering just a tad, and it takes that vagueness away. And what I'm suggesting is, because of the fork lower is now a little longer, the steepness or that rake isn't quite as pronounced as what it once was, and it's taken me just a little while to get used to it. So this is a roundabout, I know it very well. A little bit of dive under first application. I'm using the existing pads that came with the calipers. There's plenty of meat left on them, but naturally they've still got to bed themselves in to a new pair of discs. And that feels absolutely fine. (18 degrees), it's 10:15 in the morning. It's a Friday, which means everybody's going to be coming down here this afternoon for their long weekends and the beginning of their holidays and everything else. So I thought it'd be better to get a ride out earlier in the morning before every bugger and his dog turns up. And it will be everyone and their dog. They tell me that over the course of the summer, well, over the course of the year, but summer mainly, 16 million people are going to visit the Lake District, which is great. It's very nice. It keeps me in a job, gives me lots of people to talk to. It's part of the job that I love. This part, not so much. Queues of traffic behind a solo cyclist or two cyclists, and unfortunately the roads can't cope with any kind of congestion. It takes no time at all to get, I don't know, 2 5-mile tailback down one of the major A roads. That feels absolutely fine. This gentleman in front of me is doing a very sensible 50 miles an hour, which suits me down to the ground. At least until I get used to the situation. And to be honest, there you go, mate. This is as good as it gets. 18 to 20 degrees. bright sunshine, dry roads, little traffic, and I'll do this all day long, thank you. I've got a rare Saturday off tomorrow, and if it's like this, I've got every intention of going somewhere nice, go to the Yorkshire Dales, go to North Yorkshire National Park, get myself over to Whitby, get myself into Scottish Lowlands, anything. The bike's been off the road longer than it needs to be. This fork swap, this brake swap, realistically you could do it in a day, but I don't work like that. I do a couple of hours and then walk away, and then a couple of hours and then walk away, and do bite-sized jobs, and at least that way I know I'm doing it the best I can. If I was to do it all in a day, I'd rush, do something wrong, almost guarantee it. Beautiful, look at that. In fact, we should take time out and enjoy this view. Where's the landing stage? There we are. There we go. And this, my friends, is what we are talking about. Not bad, is it? Have a quick look at the forks. We're not getting any rings of oil, so nothing's leaking. No problem around the bleed nipple, around the banjo bolt, which is nice. Bus driver's not going to thank me, so let's be scarce. Oh, he's going straight past. Alright. Okay, we can just leave this here then. Okay. There we go. And this is where I live. Don't mind that one bit. Best breakfast in Ullswater, right there. Granny Del Beckins, or whatever it's called. Anything else new in the intervening 3 months? Well, like I say, summer's been largely a washout, and it makes a big difference to how much riding I do. But I had a couple of friends come up to visit about a month ago. Dave is a friend of mine, lives in Nottingham. I know him back from London, and he's just got himself into motorcycling, which is great. A friend of his very generously gave him his old Honda 600 Hornet, which is a fine first bike, perfect for him. And so he and his friend did a little tour of North Yorkshire and the Dales, and came up and saw me in Cumbria, which was great. We stayed at a place called the Town Hill Inn, which, for all those who remember those Everest commercials, tosser, Everest commercials at night on the TV with Ted Moult, You know the one where he holds up the feather in front of the double glazing and starts wobbling on about everybody should get double glazing, wobble, wobble, wobble. And he holds that fan up, and Ted outside is doing his bit, and his mate inside says, okay, Reg, turn the fan on. And Reg turns the fan on, here's every bloody word he says. But that was a Tan Hill Inn, highest pub in Britain, or highest inn in Britain. With the weather we had, to be honest, wasn't the greatest idea. It was cold, it was very, very windy. Crosswinds are, well, you've got to keep an eye out for them, especially when you ride in single track roads. Yeah, that feels okay. I mean, the wonderful thing about riding familiar roads is, of course, you know exactly how your bike should be behaving at any given time. And nothing feels out of place at the moment. I think all in all, I'm pleased with this. It's not perfect, but neither am I, and neither is the bike, and I don't see the point in selling this. Selling this for what's going to be a pittance at that, because of its mileage, because of its age, and because of its history. And then finding myself with another bike which I'm not going to ride any different, so I might as well keep this one and then do what I want to it and make it more mine, I guess. I think that's what we was going for with the full conversion. It's a good bike, just needs a little more me, as Tony Stark would say. So here we go, Amont Bridge, and then about half a mile in front of that we've got Penrith, but we'll be turning left and heading back to Stainton. That sounds like a plan. Stainton, please drive slowly, I'll be the judge of that. And I think that's probably a good place to leave you. To be honest, I could have left you probably 10 minutes ago. But it's a quick ride out with the Firestorm front end setup. Not perfect, but good enough, and certainly happy with how it looks with the work that's done. Don't mind that at all. But take care everybody, and I'll see you soon.